Hi there guys, and welcome to another episode of the Cover Zero Show with me, your host Simon Conboy. Carrying on today with the season preview series, we'll be focusing on the Carolina Panthers. For those of you who haven't seen one of these episodes before, I will be going through my projected offensive and defensive starters for the 2017 season. Of course, we've got training camp coming up and the preseason, but if the team were to play a game tomorrow, this is how I suspect they would line up. I will then be going through the schedule sort of quickly, then giving the major points in the schedule and giving my projected season record, and then going through my 3 key factors for this team this season. If the Panthers are going to make a return to the playoffs, these are the areas that I think are going to need to work out for them. So we'll hop into with the offensive starters. Of course, at quarterback, the MVP of a couple of seasons ago, Cam Newton. Last year, a real step backward. I don't think he was helped out by his receivers, and the tackle position was once again a major issue. However, in spite of those things, his performances in the second half of the season in particular were pretty poor. Turns out, he was playing through an injury. I think you can see that on the film, but his previously scattershot accuracy returned once again, and not very little consistency to the pass game. They have tried to run less with him as his career's progressed, understandably, to try and prevent injuries occurring. And I still feel like the finer points of the position aren't quite there yet. The skill set, of course, is undeniable. He may be the most physically gifted quarterback in the league right now, and I think this season is a real important one in terms of gauging whether the MVP season was just a fluke or not. It's going to go a long way in terms of forming my long-term opinion of him. Running back, well, this looks like a dynamic pair now. Jonathan Stewart and Christian McCaffrey. I think Stewart will get the bulk of the carries early in the season. McCaffrey currently injured, and I think of course he's got to learn a scheme. Jonathan Stewart, they know what they've got. Injuries aside, when he's healthy, he's a very good power back. He's got a bit more speed than your average power back, although maybe not so much at this age. Not got a huge amount of wheel, but in terms of a power runner who fits this scheme, he is perfectly fine. McCaffrey, very dynamic, of course. He'll be the third down back. I would not be shocked at all to see him operating in the slot and out wide for this team. In that regard, he offers something different to what they've currently got in the receiver group, and he'll give them far more options in terms of running outside. The potential to have him, Jonathan Stewart, and Cam all lined up in the backfield on any given play seems like that's going to be something that's pretty tough to defend. I'm certainly looking forward to seeing how they use him. An incredibly elusive player, one of the best receiving backs to ever come out of the college game. I don't feel like that's hyperbole. That's just, he's very natural in that regard. At wide receiver, we'll see Kelvin Benjamin and Devin Funchess. I suspect that Funchess is going to end up being number 3 by the end of the season as Curtis Samuel outplays him. Benjamin and Funchess, both very similar players. Benjamin, a bit more talented of the two. Both big body, jump ball type receivers. Both struggled last year in terms of creating separation, and particularly after a hot start for Benjamin, they both just weren't even out physicaling guys and winning the matchups that they really should have been against smaller guys. As a result, this passing game struggled. Benjamin, of course, has had weight issues. I don't think either one of them is a top-end target. Benjamin can be, a top-end red zone threat, but beyond that, he's a solid player, but I'm not sure he's ever going to be a true number 1. Curtis Samuel offers something a little bit different, more of a traditional wide receiver. Expect to see him starting in the slot, and eventually, as I say, I suspect he's going to work his way to the number 2 role. He'll give this team some speed and an actual threat to take the top of the defence, at least, something Cam has not had outside of Ted Ginn. And frankly, Ted Ginn was just there to run 3 or 4 deep routes over the course of a season, really. He had his designated plays. I think Samuel gives them someone that they can try and anchor this passing game around. I I wouldn't even be shocked if he ended up becoming the number 1 target if he really does hit the ground running. I think he's a very good player. At tight end, the fantastic Greg Olsen returns, one of the best tight ends in football. He's developed into a really good blocker. He's one of the best possession tight ends in the league. Does a fantastic job against zone in particular. And I think Ed Dixon will see some snaps. This team's going to need to help out its tackles. So I can see him possibly seeing the field a bit more than people may expect. Speaking of those tackles, I suspect the rookie Taylor Moton's going to make the right tackle spot his by the time the season rolls around, and Matt Khalil will be starting on the left. I think this is a real issue. Khalil was a disaster outside of what I think it was his second season. He was pretty promising. Other than that, he's had a poor career, especially for a player drafted as high as he was. I'm not sure he's going to be the long-term answer at solving this position, the blind side for Cam. Taylor Moton, a rookie, I think he can develop into a good player, and I think he may be better suited to the left tackle spot than Khalil, unless Khalil can finally put his talent together. But I think he'll start on the right side. How quickly he adjusts will determine a lot of where this season goes, but this looks like a real weakness to me. The guard spot is solid. In fact, the whole interior is, with Andrew Norwell and Try Turner, both good players. Turner's just signed a long-term extension. Norwell, one of those guys not many people are familiar with, but he's also an above-average player. Turner's an exceptional run blocker and a good pass protector, both above-average players at the position. And at centre, Ryan Khalil. We saw how essential he was to this team when he was out last year. They struggled even more so. We saw just how, one, how weak this group was, and two, how much they relied on him, one of the top centres in the league. If he comes back fully healthy, he'll possibly he'll be in contention for a Pro Bowl spot once again. He's just that kind of player. He's very athletic, can make a lot of plays on sweeps and tosses that a lot of other centres can't make, and is a real technician in both the pass and run game. Real asset to this offence. And at kicker, Graham Gano. Well, this offence is a real mixed bag for me. The receiving group and the tackle group are major concerns. Other than that, they look pretty good. If this run game can really get going like it was a few seasons ago, then I think this team can be successful. Their pass protection's not going to be good enough to hold up in a traditional sense. I think the run game's going to have to provide them with the ability to use a lot of play action. I think the same is true in terms of these receivers getting open. We saw last year there's not enough speed and quickness there, and frankly the offense just doesn't operate in, I think, a complex enough way. I think they are a little bit easy to defend, and as teams kind of figured out last year what they were doing, and because Cam wasn't executing at the MVP level he was the season before, this offense just looked very, very average. Now I do think that in Samuel and McCaffrey they've definitely got some ability to diversify, but I think unless we see that early, this group could end up just being somewhat mediocre. The talent, there is certainly high-end talent there, of course. As I've said, Cam, as talented as they come, of course, if he balls out like he did a couple of years ago, then the sky's the limit, because he'll be able to carry them. Defensively, it's like travelling back in time a little bit at the defensive end position. Charles Johnson and Julius Peppers. I mean, it's so easy to say that Peppers isn't going to be a good every down player for them because of his age, but he has performed well in these late stages of his career. I expect to see him rotating far more than you'd hope for a starter. But of course, at his age, he's not quite the explosive player that he once was, but he's still a very savvy technician, can play the run well, still got a good physical skill set, and I think he'll be able to contribute for them. Charles Johnson, he struggled with injuries recently. He's not quite the player he was a couple of years ago either, but again, knows what he's doing. I worry about how much pass rush between them they're going to be able to generate. It was a problem last year. Johnson hasn't looked like he did prior when he was one of the better defensive ends in the league. Does concern me a fair bit. There's certainly going to be pass rush specialist spots open to me. So we'll see who can contend with them for those positions. At defensive tackle, Kawan Short, one of the best free techniques in football, and Star Lotulelei, who was, I think, a bit of a liability for the most part last season as the team's nose tackle. He's playing for a contract, so you never know. That can often go well for a player, keeps them motivated. No question about Short. I expect him to, especially now he's been paid, to have a very good season. He's in his prime. He does everything well. He's one of them smaller, quicker tackles, but he can play the run on the way to the quarterback effectively. And if Lotulelei can play as well as we know he can as a nose tackle, this pairing is going to be very good. But a lot of that comes down to Lotulelei. This team was far too easy to run on last year, and a large part of that was his struggle at the position. At outside backer, Thomas Davis and Shaq Thompson once again. Davis getting older, but still playing at a reasonably high level. Whether teams start to pick on him in coverage, I'm not sure. You'd think that would be the weakness, but he still does it at a pretty high level. Shaq Thompson will just be most likely. I think maybe we'll start seeing him used more on passing downs, maybe if Davis starts to slow down, but he's a good thumper at the backer spot. I'm looking forward to seeing more of him on the field as they maybe start to phase him in as the second backer. And middle linebacker Luke Kuechly, as long as he can avoid concussions, this is arguably the top middle linebacker in the NFL, if not certainly in the discussion on one of the top three. A real sideline player, possibly the best coverage backer in all of football, a great tackler, does everything at a high level. Really can't get much better than him. At the corner position, this was an issue last year, but I think the youngsters started to, you start to see them likely the players they're going to be in the future toward the end of the year, improved as things came along. I think they get the start again in James Bradbury and Darryl Worley, and Captain Munlon will be the veteran playing the slot. I think these three are going to be the starters. In what manner, I'm not sure, because Munlon has developed into a pretty good corner himself. If last year's rookies can continue to improve, this could end up being a surprising strength for this team. But 1 year is not much to go off, but I saw enough to think this is going to be a good pairing. And at safety, Kurt Coleman and Mike Adams, both veteran players. It's just unspectacular, especially in terms of their physical skills, but they will know how to execute this scheme, and I don't expect to see too many mistakes from them. I think you'll probably get a high level of play from them this season as a pairing. And at punter, Andy Lee, one of the best punters in the league. Now, this defence, it's definitely not where it was a couple of years ago. The linebacking group is still rock solid. The secondary's got the potential to be good, but that could also be a disappointment. I worry about this front four. I don't think there's a lot of high quality depth there, and I really worry about this team's ability to generate pass rush. When they've been most effective, a few years ago, it's one of the most feared units in the league, just 2-3 seasons ago. But when that was the case, it was because they were generating great pass rush with their front four. I don't think the personnel are there for that to happen, and without it, you can see some of the issues in the back end. They'll be exacerbated. We saw last year Kuechly just was not used to having so many bodies around him. Didn't get to play as clean a sideline game as he's used to, and for the first few games in particular, just wasn't as impactful as we've seen. A lot of that falls on Lotulelei. As I say, I think he really struggled last season, and even Kawan Short got off to a slow start. There is talent on this team defensively, but they've got to show me that they're better than they were last season before I'm going to be a believer in them once again. The three key areas. We'll go into the schedule first, actually. The key in this schedule is how well they can get off in their start to the season, because in the NFC South, the divisional games sort of all get lumped in at the end of the season for the vast majority of the teams. The Texans in week 1, that is not a team you want to be playing in week 1 when you're breaking in 2 new tackles in a position that has struggled. I know they've got a rookie QB, but I think that's going to be a big game for them. Then they play the Titans. Again, this team can rush the passer from the edge. And and then they play the Jags. If their rush can improve, they look like a good defensive unit, and the Steelers. So they're going to be tested early at what I think is going to be the biggest question mark areas for the team. And as I say, we've got to get off to a good start, because once the division games start coming towards the end of the season, I expect the NFC South to be a very competitive division. It's certainly going to be a challenge, but they're going to have to be able to put up points when they play those teams, and the receivers are going to have to better for it. They do have a reasonable stretch in the middle of the season where I think they can pick up some wins, so I think the fast start's going to be essential. However, I have them replicating last year's 6-10 record. Now, as I hinted at earlier, the three key areas, pretty much hinted at most of these during the roster breakdown. Receivers, they've just got to do a better job getting open. Cam Newton did not have enough easy throws to make last year. I understand the year before he played great, but you've got to let him get into a rhythm sometimes. And not every play has to be down the field. He's got some better options this year, but they're going to take some time to gel, you'd have to think. So Kelvin Benjamin, Devin Funchess, they've just got to be better. The defensive ends, they're going to have to produce far more pressure than they did last season. Kawan Short, there were games where it looked like he had to do everything on his own. That's got to happen. As I say, this defense hinges on it. When they can just let those linebackers sit in coverage and read and react to everything in front of them, that's when this defense is at its best. Those guys are the strength, but that comes from the front four being able to do its job without needing to bring extra heat. And the offensive tackle spot, much like the receivers, Cam Newton we know he's more than capable of taking this team where they need to go, but they need some time to be able to throw the ball downfield. He has been under siege the last couple of seasons, and he can be as difficult to tackle on this and have all the escapability that you like. It's not going to help you when you're getting beaten up like he is. And those hits, I saw the toll they took on him last season. It took an absolute shoeing in the first game against the Broncos, and it really didn't get much better for him. It's hard to imagine the tackle play being any worse, but it has to be better. They've got some deep threats on the team. The two big physical receivers, Greg Olsen, get open down the field, and they've got some speedier guys now. Give this guy some time, let him hang around in the pocket, and this passing game could really improve leaps and bounds. So there you have it. That's my view on the Carolina Panthers. Whilst I do think this team's got better for the long run, I'm not sure in 2017 it's going to be enough in what I think is going to be an incredibly tough division to call. I wouldn't be shocked if any of these teams won it. That's just kind of the way the NFC South has been pretty much since its inception. But it just feels to me like the Panthers are somewhat behind the 8 ball in what are key areas to playing well in this division. But I wouldn't be shocked if this defense can step it up, if they end up playing very, very well. What do you guys think? Let me know, as always, if there's anything you agree, disagree with. Give us a shout. Any players you've got your eye on for training camp in the beginning of the regular season. We've got the comment section below. Cover Zero on Facebook. You can find me on Twitter at Simon Conboy. Going to get a lot more active on that once the pre-season games kick in. I promise you that. And check out some more of the shows if you've enjoyed this one. We're covering all 32 teams. Had the Bills up yesterday. We're slowly getting there. Nearing the halfway point now. Plenty of other stuff on the channel. If you can like, share, subscribe, check out the Patreon. It's greatly appreciated. Hoping to start doing something new soon. There'll be an announcement there, so check that out. And as always, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. It's been an absolute pleasure. Have a great evening, and go Bucks.